The Romanian response has been effective, efficient, and deeply humane. Well, at the beginning of every crisis, there is an outpour of solidarity. But in Romania, we saw it more than what we expected. Currently, the only financial assistance that refugees get is through the same social benefits as Romanians or other foreigners in Romania. There is no privileged treatment, nor there has been massive transfers of funds from the state budget to Ukrainian citizens.
Doamnelor și domnilor, bine v-am regăsit! Iată, 4 ani de război în Ucraina. Astăzi au fost prezenți foarte mulți ambasadori și foarte multe figuri publice, pentru că ne interesează cu toții ce se întâmplă în Ucraina și mai ales ce se întâmplă cu oamenii care au plecat din Ucraina, refugiații. Așa cum știm, în fiecare țară există o agenție, există un for care reprezintă nevoile și situația acestor refugiați, iar în România avem
planul de răspuns privind refugiații din Ucraina,
al cărui
coordonator este domnul Pablo Zapata, care este de asemenea și reprezentant al Agenției ONU pentru Refugiați, UNHCR, în România.
Aș vrea să încep cu următoarea întrebare. Domnule Zapata, cum a răspuns România în perioada 2022-2026 la nevoile refugiaților din Ucraina?
I think the Romanian response has been effective, efficient, and deeply humane.
A oscilat sau a fost constant?
Well, at the beginning of every crisis, there is an outpour of solidarity. But in Romania, we saw it more than what we expected, and I think more than what Romanians expected. And then that leaves place to normal life in a way. So unfortunately, as this war has prolonged, as it has the attacks against civilians and against infrastructure continue already for 4 years, then we begin to normalize a little bit things. We see refugees in our neighborhoods, and we think that is beginning to be normal. And the solidarity continues.
Și solidaritatea față de aceștia continuă.
Despite the noise in social media, people continue feeling welcome in Romania and continue contributing to the Romanian society through their work and their interaction in community.
Domnule Zapata, aș vrea să vorbim puțin despre bani. Care a fost bugetul acordat ucrainenilor din România anul trecut și ce sume previzionați pentru 2026?
There are different ways in which this refugee response has been receiving contributions. No, of course, is the state contribution and the government contribution. I think that should be answered by the respective authorities. And there is also the European Union support to Romania, and that is also something that they may be interested to communicate. From our part, the organizations working under the refugee response plan, since 2022, we have been able to mobilize external resources and bring them to Romania for a total of 1.25 billion lei. And we know, as I mentioned today in this ceremony, also that our friends from the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement contributed with $350 for a total of 1.6 billion lei coming from humanitarian actors. Money that then is spent in Romania is used to pay rent, is used to pay food, but it's also paid to use mostly services in Romania. That means Romanian professionals, that means psychologists, that means social workers, that means people working in the different parts of the response, lawyers and others that have facilitated the access of refugees to the services and rights that are part of the temporary protection regime.
Domnule Pablo, în prezent, care ar fi ponderea ucrainenilor care s-au integrat și lucrează în România și cei care nu au făcut-o?
There are several indicators that we can use for that. One of them is access to labor. And 51% of refugees tell us that they have found that they are working either in Romania or remotely. Another indicator is the 48% of children that are actively going to school. Another indicator is that 2/3 of the refugees tell us that they feel that the relation with the host community is either good or very good, and 1/3 tell us that there is a neutral relationship. At the same time, sorry, just to complement, 3/4 of the refugees tell us that they need to make, they need what we call to resort to negative coping mechanisms, or to reduce the food, reduce the medical expenses or the educational expenses in order to make it to the end of the month. So it's a little bit of a contrast situation.
Da, apropo de acest punct, suntem într-o situație economică delicată, da, inflația a crescut foarte mult. Noi, cei care suntem cetățeni români, trecem printr-o perioadă destul de dificilă. Resimt și ei acest lucru?
Yes, of course. They are living in Romania, and as such, inflation is for everyone, and particularly affecting those with low income, as many refugees are. I think for all the good and the challenges, they are in the same country, and they are trying to contribute as much as possible, not only for their families and themselves, but through their work and through their engagement to the prosperity of Romania.
Domnule Pablo, am avut un interviu cu excelența sa, ambasadorul Elveției, anul trecut, care mi-a spus că aproape 100% din refugiații ucraineni au fost integrați pe piața muncii în Elveția. Iată, la noi, doar jumătate. Este un decalaj destul de mare. Aș vrea să știu, dacă știți de la colaboratorii noastre, dacă în alte state procentul de integrare pe piața muncii este mai mare ca în România, sau 50% este o normalitate, o medie?
So first, I think we need to see the figures. There are different ways of counting unemployment. The 50% figure refers to all adults. If we take those inside the labor market, so that means those able and willing to work, the figure goes up to 78%. That's one consideration. Our concern is the 1/4 of refugees, 1 in 4, that declare that they cannot access the labor market because they have to take care of children, persons chronically ill, or elderly. So part of our work is to try to help these persons to transition to the labor market, and they cannot do it now because of the caretaking functions that they have.
Ce le-ați spune românilor care contestă ajutorul dat Ucrainei și care spun că încă nu se cunosc sumele care au fost acordate în cei 4 ani Ucrainei? Dar nu știu dacă e o întrebare care vă depășește sau nu.
Well, first I would say that the only financial support that was provided was for food and accommodation. In a first phase, that support went to Romanian citizens that were hosting refugees, not to the refugees themselves. And that was the biggest part of the expenditure. So that financial transfer was not for Ukrainian citizens, was for Romanian citizens helping
Deci transferul acela financiar, banii aceia nu au fost transferați către refugiați, ci către
De
români.
exemplu, dacă aveam o pensiune, primam bani ca să-i găzduiesc
De exemplu, if I had like a pension, like a accommodation place, I would have received money to host refugees. Da.
That was the biggest program.
Acela a fost programul cel mai mare.
For the first year and a half, close to 2 years. Then only in a second phase, there was a transfer to refugees, which was not was not sufficient to live or to rent a place. It was a little help to complement, and that was a direct transfer for refugees.
sumele de unde veneau.
These funds were coming from?
Well, the funds dedicated to food and accommodation were coming from the state budget, and my understanding is that they were reimbursed by European funds. This is something I think there has been some information recently, some of which is accurate and some of which has been distorted. And currently, the only financial assistance that refugees get is through the same social benefits as Romanians or other foreigners in Romania. So there is no privileged treatment, nor there has been massive transfers of funds from the state budget to Ukrainian citizens, and the money that was used for food and accommodation, which was the financial transfer, was mostly reimbursed, I think mostly or completely. You would have to follow up with the European Union institutions by European funding.
Dacă lucrurile sunt atât de clare, domnule Pablo, de ce nu ni se spun sumele de către guvernanți? E foarte interesant.
If the situation is so clear, why the authorities are not communicated taking these amounts?
This is something that I cannot answer. We have seen recently some information in the press. We are responsible for the figures that correspond to our contribution to the refugee response, this 1.6 billion lei that entered the Romanian economy, provided by foreign donors to support the response in Romania. Additionally, you have the European funds, and then you have the state expenditure. But the European funds, my understanding is that mostly went to reimburse state expenditures. Those are matters that need to be clarified by the respective authorities.
Evoluția situației ucrainenilor și care sunt temerile?
So I think it went from an initial shock and disbelief and deep trauma that people were suffering when they were leaving their country, into feeling welcome and received and safe in a country, and then normalizing their own lives, little by little, integrating in different parts of the Romanian society. And as per the main challenges, I would say, is to ensure that everybody continues to having has access to a dignified living during the time that they are forced to remain outside the country because of the war.
Cum poate un român, cum pot românii concret să ajute refugiații? Și ce tip de sprijin au ei nevoie cel mai mult?
I think at this point, Romanians who have social media would support refugees by checking information and calling out false information and hate messages. I think there is a citizen's duty to ensure that Romania remains a country where truth prevails and where decency prevails.
Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you.
Gabi.
Thank you very much.